What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Thomas, bringing you another edition of the Thomas Take. We are less than 24 hours away from the 2017 NFL Draft. As you all know, the Buffalo Bills will be picking with the 10th overall selection in the 2017 NFL Draft. And before we get started on the draft talk, there are a lot of burning questions heading into this draft for the 2017 NFL Draft. Questions that have yet to be answered by most NFL analysts, most premium networks like ESPN and Fox Sports 1. There aren't many clear-cut answers to these questions of who's the number one quarterback, who's the number one running back, who's the number one wide receiver, who's the number one tight end. The opinions vary, and this edition of the Thomas Take, I wanted to give you guys my thoughts on who I think are the number one players at the respective positions. So, I alluded to who I think will be the number one, who would be the only quarterback that I would willingly take in the first round of all the quarterbacks in this year's draft class. And, the guys that are out there are Mitch Trubisky, Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes from Texas Tech. Those are really the three guys that have been talked about as far as players that will be picked in the first round for the quarterback position. And really only one of those guys I would really feel good about taking in the first round, and that is Clemson quarterback Deshaun Watson. Why? Well, of all the quarterbacks in the 2017 NFL Draft, Watson is a proven winner. 32-3, went back-to-back to the BCS National Championship, went 1-1, lost one, won one, had a thrilling game-winning performance versus Bama in the last second of the game. So when talking about what type of skill set would transfer over to the NFL, he has all the intangibles. He's a natural leader. He's a proven winner. And I think that he would actually be one of those young men that would, be drafted from, Clemson to an NFL team that would be able to represent an NFL team as a leader the way that the quarterback is meant to. Not to say that Mitch Trubisky isn't a leader. That's not to say, Patrick Mahomes isn't a leader, but even if Deshaun Watson had to sit 1 year, I would feel very confident about the next year, his first year of his starting eligibility in the NFL. To say he goes on a situation where, he goes to a team where they need him to start his year two and they can let him sit year one, like the Saints or the Cardinals, two teams that have, veteran quarterbacks, but, they're two quarterbacks that aren't looking to play much longer. The Pittsburgh Steelers are another fit for him that I think would be the three best fits for Watson. Be able to go to those teams that need quarterbacks, maybe even the Kansas City Chiefs, and he'd be able to sit a year and then down the road, get in some playing time. So, even as a week one guy, I would trust him more than I would Trubisky. Mitchell Trubisky of the University of North Carolina did have a fantastic season last season, over 4,000 yards, over 35 touchdowns. He had a great season last year, but I don't think in terms of his longevity, obviously he only had one good year. So to put a lot of stock in a quarterback that really only had one good year in college is always a risk. We've seen it, happen time and time again where it's worked out okay. Miami drafted Ryan Tannehill, and Tannehill was a wide receiver at Texas A&M, was a quarterback only for one season, and he proved to be a decent quarterback. As the years have gone on, Tannehill has grown leaps and bounds, I feel, compared to what he was even 2 years ago. So that could be what we could see from Mitch Trubisky, a Ryan Tannehill-like progression. But if he's thrown to the fire week one, I don't know if he will be able to show that progression year one. It'd have to come maybe year 2, year 3, and he's another guy that I feel would be best suited to sit and learn rather than be thrown into the fire, the line of fire, and forced to start. And then you have the running back position. I've talked about this a bunch of times. This is probably the best running back class that I have seen in quite some time. You had Ezekiel Elliott last year. You had Todd Gurley the year before that. Those are really the two mainstays. You had Gurley and Melvin Gordon 2 years ago, and now you have Leonard Fournette, Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixon is a polarizing prospect, so there's quite a few running backs in this year's draft, but I don't think there is one more credentialed than Leonard Fournette. What he has accomplished at the University of LSU as a running back there, what he has done for that program, I think that would put him as the number one running back in this year's draft. Also, you have Dalvin Cook. He's got some shoulder injury issues, question marks. But Christian McCaffrey, the son of Ed McCaffrey from Stanford, Christian McCaffrey is a really rare type of player. There's some question marks as far as what position is right for him. But in terms of the best running back in this draft, it could be said that Dalvin Cook is number one. It could be said that Fournette is number one. Which one will go first? I think obviously it will be Leonard Fournette. I think that will happen. I think Fournette could go as easy as the top 6 or 7 picks. Dalvin Cook is kind of rated somewhere between 15 and 19. And then you have Christian McCaffrey, who seems to be, the heat seems to be turning up a notch as far as him going to the Carolina Panthers. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens with those positions. Wide receiver class, you have 2 in the first round that are looking to get taken in the top 15. Mike Williams and Corey Davis, 2 guys that are looking to get taken. I think in the top 25 is more likely, but I've seen a lot of mock drafts that have Williams and Davis locked in the top 15. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens in that regard. But I think the number one receiver in this class is probably Corey Davis. Even though he played at a small school compared to Mike Williams, I like Davis's intangibles much better at the NFL level. But then again, Mike Williams does remind me of a Brandon Marshall type receiver, and that would be a great fit for any team that is looking to get a wide receiver. So wide receiver, whether no matter who's 1 or 2, there's a guy out there, besides Mike Williams and besides Corey Davis that I really like, and that is Juju Smith-Schuster from the University of Southern California, USC, the Trojan horse that can. I mean, this guy will probably be taken in the second round, and I think he could very well be the best receiver in this class. Very mild-mannered guy, soft-spoken, great personality, great character, definitely checks off all the boxes that you would want as an NFL scout. Hard worker, physical, fast for his size, 6'2", 220 type receiver. Reminds me of an Anquan Bolden type receiver with a little bit more athleticism. So that says a lot, because back in the day, Bolden, in his days with Arizona, was quite an athlete. So it'll be very interesting to see, what happens in terms of the following positions that I just stated, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and next on the docket is tight end. OJ Howard. I mean, I really like this player a lot. I've seen him in mock drafts listed as, the 5th overall player taken in the NFL draft for this year, the 2017 NFL draft. So, I could definitely see him going, in the top 10 at least. I'd be shocked if he fell outside of the top 10. I really think he's that good. I'm really high on him. I really think he's going to make an immediate impact in the NFL. I think he's only scratched the surface as a Bama tight end, so it'll be very interesting to see where he ends up. But clearly, far and away, the number 1 tight end. David Njoku, obviously, that right nipping at OJ Howard's heels. I think both of these guys will forever be compared to one another, depending on where they go. I think that everyone will realize somewhere along the line that these are 2 really good tight ends out of 1 draft class. You got Jake Butt from Michigan. You have Evan Ingram from Ole Miss. You got some real talent, big body receiving playmakers at the tight end position for the 2017 NFL draft. This offensive side of the ball, the offensive line, Ryan Ramczak, Garrett Bowles, Cam Robinson has been a polarizing prospect. You don't really know. I don't really know how I feel about him. I don't think he's as good as what has been reported, especially, him coming out of Bama. There were some games, especially the one versus Tennessee, where Cam was virtually lit up versus Derek Barnett of Tennessee, one of the many talented pass rushers in this draft. So Cam Robinson, I don't know if he's somebody that I would put at tackle. He'd probably be somebody that I would try to move maybe to right tackle from left to right. So that being said, defensively, as I stated with Derek Barnett, there are a lot of great pass rushers in this draft. Myles Jarrett going number 1 overall to Cleveland. I think that he's a guy that really will bode well for whichever team decides to take him. And he's somebody that I think that will definitely pay immediate dividends for the Cleveland Browns, first overall. Definitely that's the pick, the anticipated pick in the 2017 NFL draft. I'm sorry about that. Just reading some things about Jarrett now. 6'5", 247. It'll be very interesting to see what he brings to the table. I keep saying Jarrett. I think it's Myles Garrett. So sorry about that. But yeah, I think that he's a very decent player. You got Solomon Thomas as well. You have Jamal Adams. You have a lot of great defensive players in this draft. Jamal Adams, I'd say, is the best safety. Marshawn Lattimore is the best corner. In terms of the debate between Myles and Solomon, I would say that Solomon is more of a polished prospect, but Myles is more of the interesting prospect, the real prospect that could go over the top, that can bring a team over the top. He's got the sky is the limit for him. So I find it very interesting that there's been talk about these guys, of course, but there's really been no clear-cut answer as to who's the number one. And quarterbacks-wise, the only quarterback that I would take in the first round is Deshaun Watson from Clemson. And I'm seeing so many mock drafts without Deshaun Watson even being picked in the first round. I know Mitch Trubisky will probably go in the first round, but I would be more hesitant to take him over Deshaun Watson. That was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'm Ryan Thomas. April 26th, 2017. We are one day away from the 2017 NFL Draft. Wrapping this one up at 11:16 p.m. Very interesting stuff here as we head into the draft tomorrow. You can check me out on the My Fantasy Sports Talk live draft special on YouTube. You can also tune in at 3 o'clock for the start of the Thomas Take 2017 NFL Draft coverage. I'm Ryan Thomas. Thank you for tuning in.